Only one of the devices I own is actually USB 3. And then I thought, hang on a second, that doesn't seem right. And I started looking into it, and I want to show you what USB devices look like from Windows, because it can actually tell you the exact link speed that you're connected to it. So this is the USB tree viewer, and this is what it looks like for me. I found out I have 3 root hubs. So there's one here, there's another here, which is the front of the computer. So this one's for the back, the top half, I think, of the back. This is the front hub, and then this is the one on the back, in the bottom half of the back. So my motherboard has these sections on it, and what I believe is that this section on the right is one USB hub, and this section on the left is another USB hub. I'm not 100% sure of that, but I have a guess. And this BIOS one, I don't even know. I think that's also part of the main one because it's red. So you're wondering why some of them are blue, why some are red, right? Because one of my motherboards, it had light blue on there. Light blue was for the 10 gigabit. In this motherboard, red is for the 10 gigabit. And then there's a type C down here, which says 20 gigabit. It says SS10 right here, which means it's only 10 gigabit type C. That could be the case. But typically, Type-C would be USB 2x2, which supports 20 gigabit. Again, I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to test all the ports, but I do know there's a top side and a bottom side because I have one cable plugged here in this 10 gigabit and another cable plugged into one of these 10 gigabits here. And that's how I've got it set up because I've got 2 KVMs and the KVMs connect up into, the KVMs have their own hubs and they're only 10 gigabit. And so I plugged them in that way. So I do have a Type-C on the front, and I also have one on my case, and I'm pretty sure that is a 20 gigabit port from my testing. There is a USB 3 header on my board. It's right here. It's kind of hard to see it, but this is a USB 3 header, and that's what connects to the USB 3 ports. But if I want to get the USB-C to work, I have to use this weird looking header here. And that's the USB-C 20 gigabit port on the front of it. And that's what this one is. So that's how my board handles USB. There are also 2 USB 2.0s down here, and each USB 2.0 here comes with, essentially there's 2 connections to it, but they're all still going to reference the one chip. It's not that there's like multiple chips for each one. There's only one chip, and that's how it works. So if you're looking at here, you're looking at these hubs. This one is for the front, this one is for top of the back, and this is for the bottom of the back. That's my guess. And what I want to show you is how the speeds show up. This should be 10 gigabit, but it's showing here as high speed or full speed. Full speed is USB 1.1 or 1.0, I think. It's one of the two. And we can verify that by looking at the speed. So the USB version is showing 2.01. The port maximum speed is high speed, but nothing connected to it is even 2.0. That's the other thing I learned, is that most of my devices are actually 1.1 speed USB devices, not even 2.0. So a significant number of my devices are only USB 1.1. Some of them are 2.0, and one of them is 3.0. I thought for sure I had a bunch of high-speed USB devices that could benefit. I also thought that when you had a 2.0 USB device, it would benefit from a USB 3 connection, but it doesn't. It runs the USB 2 connection through the USB 2 wires on the USB 3 cable. It doesn't interact with the 3.0 cables at all. You get no benefit from having a USB 2 connection on a USB 3 cable, which contradicts some article I read a long time ago when USB 3 first came. He said it was a little bit faster on USB 3, maybe because his computer that he was using was faster, but the connection of a USB 2 device in a USB 3 port will give you absolutely no speed benefit because it's still using the 2.0 wires. Back to this. Why is this showing this? This is CalDigit. CalDigit's only doing like Thunderbolt stuff, and they support USB 10 gigabit. What the heck is going on here, right? Well, there are actually multiple hubs in your hubs. You will see a 2.0 hub, a 1.1 hub, and a 3.0 hub. Now, as far as I know, it could all still run through the same chip, but the way it displays in this USB tree viewer and the way it displays on a Macintosh is the same way. I've tested this on a Macintosh before, and it's a lot cleaner on how it outputs this. This is just the app that I got in Windows that shows it because Windows doesn't natively have this in the system viewer. If I go to USB here, it only shows 3 hubs. That's it. It doesn't show anything else. And if I go to certain devices like my keyboard, it doesn't show the USB connection speed, nor does it do it for my mouse. And I have to go to each device individually, and again, it doesn't show the USB connection speed. So I have to go to this app to do it. It's interesting that this particular hub is showing that there are 25 devices, which I don't think is true, and 66 endpoints. Some of these devices have their own mini hubs inside of them. It's a little weird. So you can see in this particular port, there is a USB 2.1 hub, and then there's a 1.0 hub. Companion port supports super speed. You see this companion port here. So if I find this port, which is 173 right there, it's saying this port does support super speed, but there's nothing connected into it that does. It says companion port, but what it really means is this is the port, but there's like a separate chip or something inside that's controlling it. As far as I'm seeing, I might be wrong, but there are 2 chips in every hub that supports 3.0 speeds of USB. There is a 3.0 or higher, and then there is a 2.0 and lower. I'm not 100% sure, but I think because the way the wires are all set up differently, that is the case. If you look here, this is interesting too. This says device maximum speed 15 gigabits or higher. I've seen that on some 10 gigabit ports, that it sometimes shows 15 gigabits or higher. What is this that is connected in this port? Generic super speed hub. Yep, not sure. It says Intel, so it looks like it's something on the board itself. If I look what's connected to it, it's more hubs with more ports. I'm assuming this is the motherboard itself. It can't be because it says Genesis here. Genesis Logic. This is the chip used in my KVM. So this is the USB chip that's used in there. It says USB 3.2, says it's capable of Super Speed Plus, which is the 10 gigabit, or I guess it could go even higher. So it says right now the device's maximum speed is 15 gigabits or higher, even though it says it's only 10 gigabit device. That's very interesting when I see that, because this isn't always here. No, not every 10 gigabit device shows this information. It would just say Super Speed Plus. So it looks like it can do more than just the 10 gigabit that is advertised. This should be a 2.0 device. It is not. It is a 1.1 device. So the device is full speed only, even though the USB version that's being reported is 2.0. This device is also a 1.1 device. And they both show the same thing. I thought it was a 2.0. I guess it doesn't need the speed. A lot of these do not need that speed. Here's that camera that I was talking about. And this camera is only running at 2.0 speeds. Even though it supports 4K 30, it only runs at 2.0 speeds. So the bandwidth of that connection is no more than 480 megabits per second over USB. There must be some heavy compression on it, because this doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah, I'm not seeing any 3.0 devices in here. But one other thing that's interesting is that the Bluetooth that's on the motherboard is connected over a USB connection. And it is only a USB 2 connection, but it's running at 1.1 speeds. That's also very interesting. Remember, full speed is the older USB, like 12 megabit or even 1.5 megabits per second. High speed is the 480 megabits. And then you get to the 5,000 megabits when you get to USB 3. 10 gigabit is 10,000 megabits. That's the next one. Super Speed Plus, and then 20 gigabit, I don't know what they call it. I mean, it's USB 3.2 Gen 2 2x2. I mean, that's the official name. I don't know what the fancy name is. USB Super Speed 20 gigabit, I think. Here's my microphone preamp. Here it shows 2.0 speeds, high speed 2.0. If I look at my monitor, it's connected to a 3.0 hub. The monitor is connected with 3.0, but it's running at full speed, so it's not using the 2.0 connection even for the monitor. But this monitor should have a 3.0 hub too, somewhere here. I just don't see it, because I do connect the 3.0 cable into it. If I plug something into the back of the monitor, it might show it here somewhere. Oh, interesting. So now I have more information here. This says low speed. This is the 1.5 megabits per second speed. This is not the 12 megabit. Anything that says low speed is the 1.5. That makes a lot of sense. This is a fingerprint reader, most likely a YubiKey fingerprint reader. It's showing low speed, even though it's connected to a high speed port, which is correct. That's where I plugged it in. Actually, I've plugged it into a USB 3.0 port, but it's running at low speed, so you're getting no benefit from it, right? But I needed it there because of the angle of the port and where it's at, and so it makes it easy for me to scan my fingerprint in that location. Now, you're probably wondering where my 3.0 devices are. Well, my other hub most likely has them. So most of the devices we've seen are only running at full speed, but there are some that do run at high speed at least. Here's my Stream Deck. It's running at high speed, so 2.0 speeds. My DAC is running at 2.0 speeds. The thing is, these are all sharing bandwidth. Every single one of these devices is sharing that 2.0 bandwidth, which really sucks. I wish some of them would use the 3.0 speeds so that they could share on the higher bandwidth that's available, instead of trying to use the 2.0 bandwidth, which is, for every device I add to it, going to have less available bandwidth. Here's a monitor that I have, a USB monitor. It's on 2.0. Here's my Valve Index. Interestingly enough, they're all 1.1, because I've done this before, I know. They're all 1.1. I couldn't believe it. Now, there is a USB 2.0 port on the front of the Valve Index. It says here the port maximum speed is high speed. So it should be a 2.0 port, but I'm not sure, because here it says the device is full speed only. So I wonder if I connect the 2.0 device into the front of the index, is it going to come up as a 1.1 device or a 2.0 device? I'm not sure. Is it going to do 12 megabit or the 480 megabit? That's a big question I have, because that changes what you can plug in there. If you plug a hard drive into it, is it really going to get the full speed? Or is it something where it's meant for keyboards and stuff where you can do 12 megabits, no big deal? Well, you know, I don't know which one I thought was a YubiKey, but this might be this is using 2.0. Previously, I said a different device was a YubiKey. I believe it's this one. This is Yubico on it. This is the fingerprint reader, but it is full speed, and that's it. So it's only running at 1.1 speeds of 12 megabits per second. It is not using the 480 megabits per second. And it can tell that it is plugged into a port that does support super speed. Usually when you highlight one of these, it does show, yeah, there it is. It shows it in blue. Down here, you can see the companion port that if I plugged in a 3.0 device, these are the other wires that are there. So this is the YubiKey. That makes a lot more sense. This one died? Okay, I know what this Intel one is. Anything here that says Intel is the CalDigit Element Hub, because if you go one down, it says CalDigit Inc. on it, and it says super speed. So this is the 3.0 speed or the 5 gigabit per second speed right here, part of the hub, but this is the 10 gigabits per second speed. See, it says super speed plus or higher, but it doesn't have that 15 gigabits per second that it showed on that other adapter, which is very interesting. So the other adapter seems to support a faster speed than is reported. This one supports only as high as they said, which is 10 gigabit. Right now, it looks like it's only 5 gigabit and not 10 gigabit. So this is the hub it's plugged into, is the super speed. I'm wondering if there's another one I'm missing here. This hub is not showing that extra speed. It's not showing that 15 gigabits per second or higher that it was showing before. I'm curious why not, but these are all unanswered questions. The point is, I've gone through here, I've looked at all my devices, I've seen which cables support what. Here's my capture card. It supports super speed, which is fantastic. That's 5 gigabits. That's the only 5 gigabits device that I have other than some hubs. And so plugging in anything that I'm getting no benefit from anything else I plug in at the moment because nothing else is of any faster speed. And it's fun to just go around this app and try to check out like what is and what isn't at what speeds. The point is just to learn for yourself so that you can understand better. Hopefully that gives you a good overview of all these USB technologies, how they work, a little bit how to find out information about them. I do not know how to check on Thunderbolt speeds in Windows. Intel has a way to check into it with their application, but my computer that I'm using right now does not have Thunderbolt. I have tested it on the Mac, and I have seen that it shows 40 gigabit, shows how many lanes there are, shows what's available. So there's information there. If I use the Intel utility on Windows, I would also see that because another machine does have Thunderbolt. I'm just not recording on it right now. So what's interesting here that we found out is that there are cables that look like they are USB 3 because they're USB-C connectors, but you're being deceived. So like this cable here is USB 2. It's USB 2. This cable is a USB 2 cable. Only has 4 pins. This cable, while being an extension cable for USB 3, you would think it's just pin to pin, compatible, you can put whatever you want. If I connect something into here, it will only be 5 gigabit. This cable is 10 gigabit USB. It cannot go higher than 10 gigabit because this connector, this A connector on the end, none of the hardware supports 20 gigabit through it. This cable is a 20 gigabit capable, maybe even higher, but 20 gigabit at least capable USB C to C cable, or Type C to Type C cable, which would be the proper way of saying it. And then here's another one that I have that's longer. I think this is only 5, but it might be up to 10 gigabit. Now that I remember, I think it's only 5. And then I have 2 Thunderbolt 3 cables here, both of different sizes that can do 40 gigabits. And that also means they can do 10 gigabits or 20 gigabits, but they're much longer. This one is 6 feet, which is great. So they do make longer ones of these. Just the USB space, it seems to be limited to only certain sizes from what I've seen. And you really want to run through and test it with something like this because it will tell you what the actual device connection speed is when you've connected something. And that's very important when you're trying to figure out exactly why you're having speed problems or why USB 3 doesn't seem all it's chalked up to be. It could very well be that the cable is not allowing the device to be at a higher enough speed, and then you're missing out on some information that's very important to you. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you had a good time. This is a pretty long video compared to my other ones so far, but I hope I gave you a really good overview of all that you need to know related to USB cables and Thunderbolt. There is still more to understand and more to know and more things that I know, but put your questions down in the comments. I'll hopefully get another video out for you on the same topic where I go more into detail and I can show you even what it looks like when you connect in certain devices that have higher bandwidth using lower bandwidth cables and see what they look like in this application here that shows you the device's reported speeds. Thank you very much. Goodbye.